Brazil's answer to Amad Diallo or Messinho, the undisputed crown jewel of Brazilian football, the heir to Messi. Just how good is Estevao Willian?
Agora boa tabela do Palmeiras. Vem Estevão, perna esquerda, tem potência, vai pro chute!
In terms of goal scoring, Estevao has produced a non-penalty XG of 0.46, so underscoring his threat in front of goal. But these stats are mostly taken from his time in youth football. He's had limited senior starts where he has managed to find the net on 3 occasions, but overall way too early to gauge just how impactful his goal scoring could be in the senior game. In comparison to someone like Endrick, he's tallied about 21 goals in 79 appearances. So in terms of ratio, he's pretty similar to an Endrick, 0.2 goals per game. Endrick's is about 0.27 per game. But overall proof, both these players have much development to do before they can be thrown into the business end of European football. Technically speaking, brilliant left foot. He can finesse it, rocket it, place it, good fundamentals technically. But I haven't seen any outrageous finishes which showcase extraterrestrial range so far. But he does have great set piece prowess. He uses a myriad of techniques, including that renowned falling leaf technique, which is synonymous with Brazilian football. So very threatening from dead ball situations. Another element which really catches the eye for me is his proficiency with his weak foot. He seamlessly integrates that into his offensive repertoire. In particular, I like how he plants shots into the bottom corner with his weak foot. So it's not just like have a goal with power. He's really precisely planting these in the bottom corner. Of course, he's going to have setbacks such as blocked attempts, some shots which balloon over the bar. But I'd say overall, he's someone who looks dedicated to improving his finishing off both feet. And I think as long as the rest of his game can develop and he gets himself in front of goal often, I think his shot technique and decisiveness is already pretty good and should go from strength to strength.
Entregando com Estevão. Encara a marcação, perna esquerda, bate pro gol.
Botando o Verdão em apuros. Estevão escapa de 2. O Chapo faz a falta nele. Tá no coração, tá na Copa do Brasil.
In terms of his dribbling, Estevao is a high volume dribbler and he's reminiscent of players like Yamal. And with an average of 9.5 dribbles per game, he's consistently displaying that hunger to take on defenders, break through opposition lines, and his technique emphasizes balance, agility, close control, and that allows him to navigate through tight spaces with ease. Now, in contrast to players like Madueke, Elise, these players are able to powerfully bypass defenders. Physically, they already look like Premier League footballers. Whereas Estevao, he's more finesse over power. He's more like an Amad Diallo based on his recent performances for United. He also lacks that physical dominance of someone like Endrick, even though they're similar age. But there is potential, obviously, for his frame to develop and his strength should enhance over time. Now, having earned the epithet of Messinho, he's going to get compared to the likes of Lionel Messi. But can he become as good as Lionel Messi in terms of his dribbling? I think he's obviously technically quite proficient. He's got great grace with the ball. I think that's undeniable. But for me, young Messi was on a different level. He had more natural strength. He was more alien-esque in terms of his shifts with the ball. And he was more pacier. And he had more immaculate decision-making. So for me, Estevao needs to develop physically. And I think his own peak will come further down the line rather than being like this teenage sensation who takes Europe by storm. In summary, I think a player with exceptional balance, agility, good technical finesse could be a future star in terms of his dribbling, but I think it really hinges upon his ability to develop his physical attributes and then be able to translate the skills he has shown at youth football into impactful performances against seasoned opposition.
O time do Dourado encara o Vila Nova pelo jogo de volta da semifinal da Copa Verde. Vem Palmeiras, vem com o Estevão, o moleque é liso, ele parte.
Lançamento aqui pro lado esquerdo, Luigi, escora de cabeça, chegou Estevão!
Statistically, Estevao isn't pulling any trees, 1.5 aerial duels per game, success rate around 25%, but nevertheless, he demonstrates a readiness to challenge opponents in the air. He's got a commendable level of bravery, he's willing to compete, and that's notable for a player of his slender build. Now, in terms of goal threat, it's not particularly high, but he does remind me a little bit of Neymar, who despite his reputation as a technician, had this fierce element and showcased proficiency in aerial situations. Now, obviously, he will suffer against larger and more physical opponents even further down the line. But I don't think he's someone who's going to shy away from that confrontation. And I don't envisage Cristiano Ronaldo level of aerial growth. But I think in the future, he will have a sufficient level of aerial ability to become a valuable asset in terms of when he does make those diagonal runs into the box, he could get that goal out of nowhere in a big game with his head.
Sobra do Estevão. A movimentação do Luigi. Ele recebe, tá sozinho, bateu pé direito, bateu pra fora.
In terms of creativity, Estevao showcases a commendable level of creativity on the pitch. 0.32 expected assists per 90. He's clearly a hub for creativity, but he doesn't really fit the mould of a traditional attacking midfielder like a number 10, like a Cole Palmer or Kendry Pears. Their influence is amplified by their ability to consistently deliver passes into that final third, drive the game forward from the half space as well as in that number 10 area. I think Estevao is more comfortable as a wide playmaker or a pure winger, and that allows him to focus on creating these opportunities predominantly from wider areas. Now, he's clearly got that flair, he's got that vision, he's looking for those opportunities to link up with his teammates and exploit openings in the opposition's defence. However, there's lapses in terms of his pass accuracy, the weight of the pass. These are the things that he needs to improve. What I do like is that at times he's even able to utilise his weaker foot to unlock defences, so that's something to look out for in the future. Overall, I'd say his passing game in terms of the killer passing, it doesn't rival a young Messi who was a lot more mature in terms of his decision making even at a very young age. I think Estevao is going to need to refine that and work on it for it to be a big weapon in his arsenal.
O gol tem que voltar para o campo de jogo porque ainda tem muito tempo de jogo ainda para a bola rolar.
Ó o Estevão, tapa na frente, avançou, Luiz invadiu!
Sobre isso, eu ganhei esses 8 vieram para mim do Flaco, mais 4.
E lá vem Palmeiras na tentativa.
In terms of Estevao's involvement in possession, he's someone who tends to wait for the game to unfold rather than actively seeking to dominate the possession like a number 10 type of player. In terms of his link-up play, he does have this natural aptitude for receiving the ball under pressure, and he combines effectively with his teammates. He's comfortable receiving on the back foot, drifting inside. He's got sharp one-touch passing, tight control. But I'd say someone like Diallo has more of a natural feel for when he comes in off the flank to really want to get involved with play. With Estevao, I want to see more of this. I'd also say that his link-up play doesn't really evoke the same level of awe as Messi, Neymar, or even Endrick now. I think he's quite proficient and efficient, but there's a lack of standout moments that truly captivate. So I think solid possession player, adept at linking up with teammates, but I want to see more influence on the flow of the game.
Vai pedalar para cima do Anderson, entrou na área, o toque pro Luigi, gol!
In terms of Estevao's crossing, he demonstrates a willingness to get balls into the box. His accuracy rate of 30% is decent, but there's room to grow to elevate it to the top level. In particular, I'd say Estevao excels in delivering deep inverted crosses. They've got a good whip on them. I'd say occasionally too close to the keeper, but there's evidential potential in his crossing. He can read the situation in the box and he varies his delivery techniques effectively, and one such variation is his weak foot, which in of itself produces many variations. He's able to whip the ball across goal, dink it to the far stick, slide it through across goal, and that's just his right foot. So he's got a comprehensive skill set that sets him apart from many inverted wingers, a bit like a Yamal, who's very sort of well-rounded winger with both feet. I'd say Yamal's Trivela is better. Estevao hasn't really showcased that, but generally I'm pretty impressed with his repertoire. I think it's well-rounded, promising. I think just keep that ball away from the goalkeeper, add a bit more power to the crosses, reduce that loftiness slightly. Overall, pretty impressed.
Seus defensores para dentro do campo de ataque. Wellington contra Estevão. Estevão lá embaixo.
In terms of Estevao's defending, he's energetic, hard-working on the field. He's got almost 5.96 defensive actions per game, which is solid for a winger. He's pretty successful in duels as well, 60%. So he's someone who generally is winning his duels. Now, if we look at his 1v1 defending deeper on the pitch when he's sort of protecting his defense, it's pretty good. He's able to sort of use the outside of the foot to really, nick the ball off players. He blocks crosses. In some of the systems he's played in, he's been as a right wing back and he's done well. But there's other times where he can, especially higher up the pitch, be vulnerable, gets nutmegged way too easily, opens his legs way too wide. So there's a slight naivety to his defending as well. So definitely some potential here. He can be coached into being quite a good defensive product as a winger, but his focus is lacking sometimes.
A ligação ali com o campo de ataque, ficou com a sobra o Alisson. A pasta para receber do lado esquerdo o Wellington. O André Silva.
Tem alguma mexida no Vitória?
Vitória voltou com a mesma formação do primeiro.
In terms of Estevao's long passing, 50% success rate indicates room for improvement. From a visual standpoint, I think his technique looks pretty solid. The fundamentals are pretty good. He demonstrates potential, especially when he's using curled switches of play. I think he showcases ambition and vision in terms of wanting to try and progress the game with long passes. But there is this tendency to be almost over-ambitious because the precision, the accuracy doesn't really complement the level of ideas that are going into it. But overall, I'd say glimpses of promise. I think with refinement, with coaching, he's got this window of opportunity to really make it a part of his game. But obviously at some stage, if it stays at this level of accuracy where it's, oh, great idea, but poor execution, it might be something that he has to actually remove from his game eventually. So something to keep an eye on. Overall, I'd say there's definitely positive trajectory here, and I'd expect it to become a good part of his game as he matures.
Primeiro jogo 2-2 e o Verdão vai vencendo por 1-0. E olha o lançamento para o campo de ataque, sai do gol, Antônio.
Tactically, Palmeiras play predominantly in a 4-2-3-1 setup, although the alternative setups include many variations of a 3-5-2 type of setup. And Estevao primarily features as a right winger, although he can obviously feature as a right wing back in those back five type of setups. Now, he's a player who's still trying to establish his presence in the team, and he's someone who's tending to wait for the ball to come to him, but when he does receive it, he wants to be impactful in possession. He's like a typical sort of winger who likes to hold the width in this modern day game without real much support, like a Riyad Mahrez for City, likes to get into those 1v1 situations and use the step over to go down the line, or generally try and cut in and wait for that perfect moment to get a shot off, or even hang a bit deeper and get inverted crosses in. So that sort of generally showcases what he's about in terms of his tactical profile. In conclusion, Estevao possesses great technical prowess for such a tender age. He's got great presence of both feet, and he arguably has more of a wider range of technical abilities to a young Messi. But Messi had unparalleled intelligence, touch, and wizardry with the ball, even with that one left foot, that set him apart at that young age. I think with Estevao, there's many areas where he falls short of Messi's impact at that age, which would prevent him from thriving in a top league straight away. I think he needs to physically develop. I think he needs to play more football, adult football, even in Brazil, before he possesses the necessary power and speed to thrive at the highest level. I think going to a demanding environment like Chelsea, where they're stacked on that area of the pitch, for me, it doesn't make any sense for him to go to a club like that. I think he shares similarities to someone like Amad Diallo, who made that move to United way too early, and it stalled his development. I think like Diallo, he does exhibit agility, gracefulness, promising creativity, but I don't think at the moment he's got enough body of work to showcase that consistency and elite level performance to walk into a Champions League side as a first teamer. I think his trajectory hinges upon his development on various aspects of his game. There's seeds of potential, but at the moment I don't say there's any guarantees that he's going to blossom into a match-winning force at the highest level. It's going to require work on his physical attributes, further technical refinement and tactical understanding before he can make his mark as one of the biggest names in football. I think someone like Endrick will find that transition a bit more easier because physically he's a lot further ahead. With Estevao, there's going to have to be a bit more patience and clever decision making as to his career pathway. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe, and see you guys again next time. Bye.